Today, we're going to take a look at the tiniest little retro gaming console that you've ever seen. Think I'm exaggerating? Well, I'm not. So shut up. Hello, hi there, I'm TechDweeb, welcome. Thanks for clicking on the video today. Good things come in small packages. So I hear. Actually, now that I'm saying it out loud, I can't really think of any of them. Oh, candy. Candy is good, and that comes in a small package. Hang on, I'm gonna go hit up my stash. Oh yeah, baby. Is there anything in the universe that's as satisfying as a box of Mike and Ike's? All to yourself. So when I heard about this thing in this package, I was excited. Inside this package is a keychain. That's right. I'm reviewing a keychain. It's got the sort of braided pattern, golden black. It seems like it's made of plastic. So yeah, if you need a keychain, then buy this one. I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more exciting reviews. Until next time, I'm TechDweeb, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, wait, hold up. There's something else in the package. The keychain is meant to go with this. This is the Hyperbase Mini, the world's smallest retro gaming console. It's $35. It's about the size of a Mike and Ike, and it supposedly comes with batocera Linux, pre-installed, ready to use, with over 43,000 games, if you can believe that. Now, I've reviewed quite a few retro gaming consoles on the channel. There are dedicated Android-based retro gaming devices, but most of us have a computer of some description, and there's a good chance that your computer is more powerful than these cheap Android boxes, which is why I'm a big fan of these emulation hard drives that you can use with the computer that you already have. This one here is a 2TB batocera hard drive. You can boot to this drive to turn your PC into a dedicated emulation machine. And then there's this one. It's a 2TB RetroBat hard drive. So this one actually runs the front end and the emulators from Windows, so you don't need to boot from it. Even these are freaking enormous compared to this Hyperbase Mini. This thing is small enough that you could accidentally swallow it. It doesn't come with controllers, it doesn't come with the hardware to run the games. It's just the system itself, the operating system and the ROMs. So maybe you have a PC or a laptop with a controller for playing games. Even if it's not like a gaming computer, it'll still probably work fine with all the retro games that we have on here. Yeah, getting started with retro emulation can be a bit of a daunting task because you need to download a front end for Windows or flash a batocera image, and then you need to download your ROMs, add them to your system, then maybe scrape the box art. Maybe you'll have to configure a bunch of emulators, but lots of people just don't have the skill or the time to deal with all that. These emulation hard drives solve that issue because they come all set up and pre-configured. While it's nice that 2 terabytes of games means that you can fit on a bunch of the higher end games like Gamecube and Wii or the 3DS, I think that lots of people don't care about emulating higher end retro games. They have modern games to fill that role, but they don't have something to fill the retro game shaped hole in their heart. And maybe, just maybe, this Hyperbase Mini is the exact shape and size to fill that hole. All you need to do is plug in a controller and plug in the Hyperbase Mini into your PC, select this as the boot device, and then boom, you're up and running. Alright, let's see what we got here. There are lots of systems, obviously. I'm not going to bother reading them all out for you because that would take forever, but just watch the video on slow speed or pause the video if you want to get a closer look. There's so many systems on here, but most of the newer systems that are on here, they don't have many games. The game lists are good, I'll show you that in a minute, but just know that just because a system is listed, that doesn't mean that it's going to have a bunch of games for it. For those of you who aren't aware of what you're seeing, let me give you my quick 30-second explanation. This is batocera. It's a custom version of Linux specifically made for retro emulation, and the front end that you see on the screen is called Emulation Station. Each of the systems that you see will take you to a games list, and you can choose a game to start it up, and the controls work as expected. selected, and as you can see, there's a nice bezel to fill out the screen. You can save the game by pressing the hotkey and X here, or load it by pressing the hotkey and Y. You can exit the game by pressing the hotkey and start, and you'll get back to the games menu. You can also open up some options for the system that you're in by pressing the select button and going down to the advanced system options. So let's say that you didn't like the bezel artwork. You can turn that off here under the decorations. And let's say that you want a shader to make it look like an old CRT monitor. Then go back into the game, and those options should now apply to all of the games in this system. It's easy enough. There's a lot more that I could tell you, but I have a video coming up that will be a complete guide to Emulation Station. So get subscribed if you don't want to miss that. The first thing that I'm going to do to see how complete the ROM collection is at a glance is the Doom search test. When I do a search for Doom, I see that it's pretty good. We got all the important systems: Super Nintendo, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo 64, Sega 32X, and Jaguar. The only omission is PlayStation, so it'll be interesting to see what the PlayStation game list is like. Next, I'm going to see if we have any duplicate games. The usual culprit for this is the Atari 2600, and this is actually really good. I'm not seeing any duplicate entries, so that's promising. I'll include a link to the spreadsheet of the games list if you want to know what's on here. For everything from the Pixel Games era, everything you want will be on here. For instance, there are 1,879 NES games. Lots of those will be just Japanese or European games, but if you want to see only the US games, you can apply a region filter to see just those. I don't have any problems with most of the games lists, like Atari, NES, Super Nintendo, Sega, Game Boy Advance. They're all good to go. It's not a complete arcade collection though. A complete arcade ROM set is like 80 gigs on its own, so that's understandable. So let's see how they did. Do they have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Yes, they do, and it works right away. What about The Simpsons? Yep, they got that, and it works. Sunset Riders? Yep, that works good too. Marvel vs. Capcom? No, they don't have that. But if I do a search, I could see that they do have it on Niobe. And what about Dungeons & Dragons Chronicles of Mastara? Nope, they don't have that. Oh, okay, so it's not the most complete arcade ROM list, but there's lots on here. And they have most of the big ones, I suppose. This had all the Atari games I wanted, all the NES games, all the Sega games, all the Super Nintendo games, complete ROM sets of everything. Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. You know, for all that low-end stuff, there's probably not going to be much, if anything, missing. Most of the collections were complete, as far as I could tell, without many duplicates. All the English North American releases, and none of those systems had any issues with the emulation or the performance. As far as the 2D pixel-based emulation, this thing has you covered. The one exception that I found was PC Engine, or TurboGrafx 16, as we called it here in North America. All of these games were in Japanese. I think they forgot to include the TurboGrafx games. Even the higher-end 16-bit and 32-bit stuff, like Atari Jaguar, Sega 32X, Niobe, no issues with any of those. Not many games for those systems were released, to be honest, but they had everything that I'd want to play, and they played perfect. We only have 128 gigabytes to work with, so these old systems are where this thing's really gonna shine. Since these old games are tiny, they can put basically every game from these systems on this one tiny USB drive. But when it comes to the 3D systems, there's not much on here, with the exception of Nintendo 64. Pretty much the whole Nintendo 64 library is on here. But that's because the Nintendo 64 ROM files are small. They're just a few megs each. There are 130 PS1 games on here, but this is a very disappointing PS1 collection. They're mostly Japanese games, mostly 2D games, a couple of sports games. There's basically nothing I'd even want to play in here for PS1. As for the other high-end 3D systems, there's not much. There's one Gamecube game. Crappy game, actually. Don't bother with it. There's 7 Nintendo DS games. None of them worth playing. 2 Wii games, and one of them was Twilight Princess. That's a good game. There's 1 3DS game, Whatever. There's one Sega Saturn game, piece of garbage. One Dreamcast game. Crazy Taxi, of course. There's one PS2 game. It's Burnout 3 though. It's probably one of my favorite PS2 games actually. One crappy PSP game, one PS3 game, and it kept crashing on me. I was excited to see that the original Xbox was on here. I've never seen that before on one of these systems. There's only one game, Jet Set Radio, but hey, it worked. So there's not much by the way of higher end 3D games. I'd have personally preferred if they left off those high-end systems and put a bunch of really good PS1 games. That's my main criticism about this whole thing, is that we don't have much by way of PS1, and I think that's an important system for this sort of lower-end emulation product. So, at the asking price of $35, it's hard to complain. I know it's just a 128 gigabyte USB drive, but even a blank drive like this is going to be like $15 or $20 on its own. Yeah, you can totally make this yourself. If you get a USB drive and install batocera on it and copy your games over, you're paying for the convenience though. For $35, you can get a tiny little game system that will turn any PC into a game console. One benefit to this setup is that you can move between computers. So, for example, you're playing through Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on the Nintendo 64 at home. You've unlocked a bunch of levels, and then you go to your buddy's house while his wife is away on a business trip because she doesn't approve of him playing video games, and you can bring your Hyperbase MIDI when you go over, and you and your buddy can play Tony Hawk's 3 right there where you left off with all the levels unlocked. And you can play and unlock more levels while you listen to your buddy complain about how controlling his wife is, and maybe you can play devil's advocate and remind him how much better his life is now and how his wife has helped him become a better person, and inspire him to talk through his problems with her instead of hiding resentment, because that's a dark path that nobody should have to walk alone. For example, I tested a ton of games, and for the most part it was a great experience. I love these retro systems. I say it in every video I make about these things, but I'm gonna keep saying it because I believe it so strongly. It is amazing that we can buy something like this for $35. It fits on your keychain, plug this into a PC and get basically every game from the 8-bit and 16-bit and 32-bit console era at our fingertips, ready to play. Playing my old favorite games and discovering new ones is one of my favorite things in the world. And I love that these days anyone can get that experience with minimal barrier to entry with an Android-based emulation console or an emulation hard drive or a mini USB games drive like this one to turn any computer into an emulation machine. I'll leave a link to this and the other products that I mentioned in this video in the comments below if you'd like to pick one up. And that brings us to the end. Click the thumbs up button if you like the video, or the thumbs down button if you didn't. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my videos. I'm TechDweeb. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.